Good morning, everyone. Finally got another day to work on the old Storm. I got Remy with me. Remy. Well, hello. He's ready to go for a walk, so maybe we should do that first, but I figured today would be a good day to actually tackle the little axle. Let's go out here and check it out real quick. Apologize for the shaking, but as you can see, I did fill up the tires. One of them is flat. Otherwise, all of them stayed full. Got the glass, looks pretty decent. So we're going to pull that around. Maybe go on a little walk first for this guy. And then we'll pull it around back. And let's go ahead and get that axle off and see what kind of damage there actually is. That'll be step one. Oh, sorry, hi. All right, buddy, let's go. All right, guys, so we got her up back in the alley. This is kind of what we are dealing with. Let's go ahead and take this tire off and see how bad the damage is and start taking this apart. Now, would I recommend doing this job in the alley? No, I wouldn't. Hopefully I can get the whole thing put back together. See what happens. So let me set you guys up. Let's go ahead and jack the car up. I've got the back tires secured. Goal is to not get run over here in the alley. Look at that. Let's go ahead and set a jack stand underneath. Let's go ahead and set it down on the jack stand. Feel like it may fall apart. Oh, too low. All right, so let's go ahead and take the wheel off. I don't think that wheel is being held on by very much. I could be wrong, but go ahead and get the wheel out of the way. And look at this. So the axle nut just snapped right off. So let's go ahead and get that replaced. Alright guys, the first thing we're going to do is take off this tie rod end. It'll allow us to at least swing this spindle a little bit so I can get access to the brake. So let's go ahead and take that off. So it is a 14 millimeter, or at least that's what's on there. Just like that, it's off. Now I guess we're going to try to pickle fork it off. I could use the remover tool that I have. I do like the pickle fork, not going to lie. So let's get the pickle fork in there. This is what a pickle fork looks like. You're essentially just going to stick it in the joint. I'm going to try not to mess up the boot as much as possible, and then I will hammer it in. So you get it in there a little bit as best you can. Start tapping it in. We don't want to rip the boot. And now you whack it pretty hard. All right, here we go. Oh. As you can see, not budging. Let's try this guy. like that. Removed the tie rod end. Boot looks pretty good. Now we can spin this with ease. Access these brakes a little bit easier. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do to remove the brake is get this little pin off of here, or this little brake line holder, so 14 millimeter. Let's go ahead and take that off. There it is. You can see that came right off, and now we can remove the caliper and hang it somewhere in here. Alright, let's go ahead and take the caliper off. I believe these are 17 millimeter bolts. Thing here. Oh, sorry about that. There it is. Now we're just going to take the caliper off. Tiny little brake pads. Set those aside for the minute. Let's just wire up something here. Lots of holes in the frame, that'll do. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. You can see I've got the caliper just hung up there. Last thing is the ball joint down here. Alright guys, so a little update. Got the screw out of the ball joint. Now we have to separate the ball joint. We're going to separate it the same way that we did the tie rod end with a pickle fork. I should have the other one laying around here. There it is over there. And it seems like the rotor is definitely rusted to the hub, so that may present another problem that I didn't really think of when I started doing this. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get that separated. Got the pickle fork in there. Trying to give myself as much room as possible. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty much out. So that came out real easy. It isn't kind of, oh, it slipped back on, so I'm going to have to press down on the control arm at the same time with a little lever. So let me find something that we can use to get that out. Alright guys, so I just want to show you what I use. Actually, a lug nut remover from my truck. You'll see in the control arms they have those little holes right in the middle of the screen. Stick that in there and then press down, and that's what you can use to lower your control arm and separate. Let me show you guys. The ball joint from the knuckle. Now at this point we just have to try and rotary hammer that out, and we should be able to drop the whole assembly at that point and see what's going on with that brake. Now to remove that out of the hub, obviously it's pretty rusty inside of there, you can see. Got a little rotary hammer. Pointy bit goes in there. Let's set it up, see if it works. I apologize for the noise. Just like that, you can see how much farther deeper it is. See if we can pull this out. And there you go. Look at that CV. Wow. So the goal is to pull that out of there now. It's a pretty long one, so that's going to be tricky. Time for lunch. We'll get back after that. Back from lunch. Let's go ahead and take this strut assembly out, and then we'll attempt to remove this CV axle. Way back there. Might be pretty difficult, but we'll see what happens. The strut's really just held up, whoops, on the top here by these 3 bolts. So let's go ahead and take those out. Alright guys, so it's a 14mm. Let's go ahead and do this. So I let that one stay on there for a second here. And I'll grab it out of here. Should be able to pull this out. Here it is. Oops. There's the axle. Somehow we have to get way back there. It's a pretty large axle. Maybe we can grab it on that center part right there. So there it is. That's the strut assembly removed. Everything's taken apart. It looks like my problem may have just been that axle. I mean, obviously that was a huge issue. So I do have some parts. Let's go check them out. I got the slide hammer in here. You can see my problem. Slide hammer is pretty short. I've got the little CV adapter. I had to finagle it in there and then put in the slide hammer and screw it in. However, I don't really have that much room to do any sliding. I may end up just cutting the CV off after this little bumper. I've got it sort of hanging as high up there as I can to give me as much clearance. Pretty brutal though, not going to lie. Not sure what other tool would actually fit on there. Could be doing this the wrong way, but nonetheless, let's try to give it a few taps and see what happens. Well, little update, didn't set you guys up, but it did come out. So there it is. Let me set it down and I'll show it to you guys. Here it is. It's the side that went into the transmission. It's the side that's sheared off. And there is the slide hammer. Let's pull that out. There's the adapter that goes around the outside. Let me set this up and I'll show you how it works. That was relatively easy. So for one of these CV remover tools, you can use a slide hammer and you can see that it's pretty short. Alright, sorry about that. The guy that just drove by asked me if I wanted to get rid of any of these parts. So this is the axle. This is the slide hammer, 5-pounder. The adapter goes on the outside like so. Whoops. Like that, around right next to the transmission, and then you slap this against the end. It's tough to see on camera, but you get the idea. And it pulls it out. Pretty nice. So that's something I was a little worried about. And you can see there is the transmission. Oh, I can see inside that, which is kind of weird. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Interesting. I don't know how much transmission fluid is in there. Well, let's see what we have. I'm gonna go open the new part and see what's there. So here's the new CV. Looks good. No bumper. And then you can see what cracked off right there. Bend down a little bit. Look at that. So that's where the nut is supposed to go. I think they did include one here. It's over here. Here's the actual nut itself. So that's what had broken off. Pretty dangerous, actually. Nice. So let's go ahead and see if we can push it back on there. There's no bumper on the new one. I don't know if I'm supposed to use that, but I'm not going to worry about it, to be quite honest. So let's go get set back up. Alright guys, so you can see the little hole in the transmission up there. Right, a little bit above the middle of the screen. The end of the CV needs to go into that hole. It's actually pretty far away from me. So what I'm going to do here, and there's this little clip at the end that you guys can see. I'm going to try to make sure that the hole in the clip, the C-clip, oops, is facing down when I stick it in there. Apparently that helps. So I'm gonna lift it up. And away she goes. Let me come back closer to you here. Wheel is stuck, of course. Let's go. We're gonna lift it up. Slip it around. Alright, so it's kind of in there. I don't know if I was blocking your guys' view. I apologize. I'm on a terrible set of ground here. I need to get off this little creeper. It's obviously not going in very easily. So, let's go ahead and move this. Let's get down on the ground. And so now, try to just jam it in there a little bit. There we go. And that's in there. Slid right in. And that's back in. CV axle has been changed. Nice. You can see it down in there. That's what the new tip looks like. Let's go see what's going on with the wheel bearing and the strut. I do have a new strut for it. I'm not going to replace all of them or two of them. This car's, you know, pretty much junk, so should be a big upgrade though right there. Axle that's actually connected. So let's go check out the other parts. So there's the slide hammer. I rented that, so I usually rent these tools. Eventually I'll buy them probably. I've got enough cars now, junk cars anyway. That's the adapter. And then you guys can see there's the old strut with the rotor still attached. Old strut assembly. And then here's the new strut. I don't have a new spring. I do have a new mount though. Hopefully that fits. So I'm going to pound the knuckle off. Those are 18 millimeters. So I'll take those out and then pound that knuckle off the old strut. I do have a spring compressor. We'll probably get that spring off. I'll show you guys how to do that. We'll go from there. All right, again, these pinch bolts are 18 millimeter. That didn't come off. Let's try the actual nuts on the back. Maybe that would be a better idea. Let me run and grab the lube real quick. All right, hold your ears. Maybe that's not 18. Let's see. Just try 17 real quick. Yeah, 17 millimeter. It's kind of weird. Hold your ears. So he at least broke him free. Let's go ahead and get something on the other side. So let me get another wrench and we will hit both of these at the same time. Everything looks pretty crusty. Yeah. All right, let me go grab another tool. There's one. And there's two. There we go. That's how you can get those out. Those are the nuts. So I'll keep those on there just in case. I'll lose them. And now getting this guy out. And grease it up a little bit. There it is.
When you're done with that, will you, if I measure,
So as you can see, the old strut has these studs coming out, whereas the new strut does not have any of this. It does have a support in the back. It's interesting. Well, I think that just holds the brake line. Not important. I like how it did come off of the hub. Next, I do think the wheel bearing is done, so let's take a look at that situation. Alright guys, I got the hub on my vise. Now I think this is where I'm not real positive what I'm doing. I think this is a seal. I'm not positive. I know it's got to come out at some point. Just trying to ease it out. There it is. So inside of there, snap ring, and then that's a brand new snap ring, so not sure what the person tried to do before this. Still haven't been able to get the rotor off, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I can pound this guy out right here. So we'll see. Alright guys, we're going to try the little rotary hammer again. I was just informed that the rotor is actually supposed to be separate, so let's try to knock this guy off. Nothing. That's weird. All right, 'cause we're gonna try the little rotary hammer again. I was just informed that the rotor is actually supposed to be separate, so let's try to knock this guy off. Hmm, nothing. That's weird. 'Cause we're gonna try the little rotary hammer again. I was just informed that the rotor is actually supposed to be separate, so let's try to knock this guy off. Quite the conundrum here, folks. Well, I don't know, guys. It's starting to come out of the vise. That's not good. Let's reset it. So I think it may be separating, guys. I don't know if my eyes are playing tricks on me. Could be at this point. Well, that's one way to do it, I guess. The whole hub came out. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Ooh. It's interesting. Well. And there she is. I guess we'll just use her like that. That's kind of what I was looking for anyway. Oh well. Let's go ahead and try to get the bearing out. Let's try to get that snap ring here. I actually put on safety glasses. This is kind of a dangerous operation. These things usually go flying. A little scary. Let me get some other tools here to help get this out. Alright guys, so remember why I said I didn't recommend doing this in the alley? Well, it's day 2. The car stayed in the alley last night, which is pretty dumb, but there it is. I did have to bring it to a shop. They installed the correct bearing. I definitely did not have the right bearing. Took them a couple hours to get the outer race out, and they did get the rotor separated as well. The rotor's in pretty rough shape, but I will go ahead and pound some anti-seize into it and eventually replace it. But luckily, hub is okay. Look at that, bearing is okay. Spins nice. Let's go ahead and put it on the car. Let's go ahead and replace the strut. So the thing that I'm concerned about is obviously the strut mount and the bearing that's inside there. I'm not exactly sure how it will all come apart, but we are going to compress the spring. So I'll show you how to compress the spring. This This is somewhat of a dangerous part. So what we have here, it's called a spring compressor. Pull out these little pins. And then we need to spin this, bring it in a little bit. And you're going to put it on opposite sides of the spring. So let's go ahead and put that on there. Should probably put it the other way, actually. We're just going to tighten this up all the way. I prefer to do this part by hand just to make sure it gets seated properly. There it is. Now we're going to make sure it's got a little bit of tension on it by hand. I'll flip it around, we'll put the other side on it. Oops, of course, I always go the wrong way. I want it to be pretty much on opposite sides. Once it has some tension, it stays there. At this point, you can use an impact to compress the spring. This is what it looks like. Something like that should be good. I could probably compress it a little bit stiffer, but there you go. Now on this particular Geo Storm, little cap right here. Inside of there, you want to be careful handling a strut when it's compressed. Inside of there, it's a little nut, so we can loosen that at this point. Let's see what size it is. Feels like 18, 17. You guys see that? Sorry about all the shaky camera. There it is. Always a tad bit nerve-wracking for me to do this. And there it is. I'm still not quite sure why it did not pop off. Usually it comes apart. Let's take a look. As you can see, I'm being kind of careful. And there it is. Strut comes out. Alright guys, we got the strut in place. I think the mount is on good enough. Let's go ahead and start to relieve some pressure on the spring. Then we'll go back and forth. Sure that the strut is still seated properly. Sticking your fingers in there is probably a bad idea, but like I said, doing this job in the alley is a bad idea. Do what we have to do. Make sure that this is seated right. Starting to sit down into the new strut. I'm gonna go little by little. Still feels pretty loose. Down. And there it is, folks. Now we just take the tool off. Oops. And there it is. Alrighty, we're back. And we need to hook up the hub. I should probably adjust the control arm. Let me get a tool. There it is. Get one bolt through. There's one. There's two. Bolts are on. And now let's go ahead and lower this a little bit. And grab another hammer. So let's press down on this a little. Just straighten out the ball joint, and then let's go ahead and do it. So it's sort of sitting in the ball joint. We just need to work it in at this point. So let me do that. And usually I just kick it a few times and it'll fall in, but let me work it and then we'll get back to you here. All right, guys, got everything back together. Ball joint's nice and busted up. We're going with it. We're gonna send it. Tie rod's back in place. Strut's back in. The only thing left is the rotor. And we've got the axle nut. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to determine if I've got the right hub on this car. The axle does not come out any farther than that. So I have to be very careful on the axle nut not to snap it off. But we're gonna send it. So let's get on the axle nut, put the rotor back on, put the brake on, and we're good to go. All right, so I was able to slide it a little bit farther. However, it is, and that's the joint from the backside kind of pulling out a little bit. I don't really want to tighten it too much farther, but it's on there. I mean, obviously you can't come out, so everything's looking pretty good at this point. Feels nice and solid, much more than before, so pretty happy with it. So let's go ahead and get the brake on and then we'll be done. Well, guys, sometimes you just have to sit back and marvel at the work. It is now nice and solid. We've got an actual axle. It's time to put the tire on and get this thing out of the alley. This is currently where I'm at here. So I'm going to put on the tire and then we'll drop it and see what it looks like. And as you can see, guys, I got the wheel on, no more wobble, and that's the whole car moving. But it is not the wheel this time, so this feels good. Feeling pretty good about that. Let's go ahead and set her down, see if she falls apart, right? And grab the go ahead and get the jack stand out from underneath. Set her down. See if she breaks. Lots of creaking and crackling. Pretty good. Doesn't bounce much anymore. Nice and stiff. All right, guys. So there it is. I'm gonna go park it. Stay tuned for more updates. That was a brutal job only because of that bearing, which is pretty typical. I'll see you next time, guys. Car needs a good wipe down. So do I, but check it out. I mean, this is a pretty cool looking car.